Good evening. This is Charlie Russell for ConcordTV, and we're here with live election coverage. We'll be covering the races, getting the results coming up from the city clerk's office. And we've assembled a A1 crack team to help us interpret the results. I have Dr. Roger Brooks with me here on my left, and he's going to be, let's see what race you're going to You're going to be covering school board District A and at-large races, but any observations on the voting today or what's going on?
Well, first of all, let me say I'm delighted to be here. Our crew has been together for several years now, so it's kind of like a family night here, and getting to see old friends. I did vote, and I did get out to a couple of polling places. Everybody said that it was a low turnout, except that Ward 1 seemed to have a little more activity, at least by 4 o'clock when I checked.
Oh, well, that's good. That's good. And we have Rosemary Lanier, longtime host of Rapping with Rosemary. Pleasure to have you with us once again.
My pleasure too.
And you're going to be doing what, 8, 9, and 10 school district and turnout, and the I call it the Rocky IV race up in Ward 8. We got 2 people running for the 4th time against each other. And we got Glenn Curry over there as well.
Such a pleasure to be here.
Concord's author, poet, and philosopher, a writer.
And I get called a lot of other names too.
Well,
Those are good ones. So.
And you'll be doing school district B, which is wards 5, 6, and 7. We have a pretty hot contested race, and you'll be keeping track of sports betting, I guess.
Yeah, we'll see. Big decision between Keno and sports betting.
Well,
or
we'll see
maybe
what
both.
happens.
Who knows?
And the guy in the middle is a long-time, we're going to interview him right now, but a long-time city councilor at large who's going out on top, 13 years, lucky 13, Mark Cohen.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you for inviting me here.
Well,
I've waited 13 years to have this opportunity.
Well,
When it comes.
well, don't expect it every year, Mark, okay?
It won't be after this one. That's for
But did I hear you're running for the school board next year?
sure. No.
Actually, let's
But
see,
anyway.
Tara Reardon did that, I think, from city council to school board in the past.
So while we're awaiting some results to come in, we're kind of going to interview Mark.
Before you do that, Charlie, what's the normal process? Is it 7:04 when all the returns are in, or how?
Well, that's when they're in at Ward 5, but they don't call them up to us right away. So
Okay.
we're looking at maybe doing no more than 2 hours here.
Okay.
We got some behind-the-scenes staff and volunteers helping us. So I don't know, Rosemary, you got an opening question for Mark, and you do pretty good with your interviews.
Thank you. Well, I was wondering, you spent 13 years on the council and through some, I'd say, economic rough times and good times.
Pick up your microphone.
been-
Pick up your microphone.
It's up and down. And I was wondering, are there 1 or 2 things that really stand out over your time that you really feel good about?
For 13 years, I really feel good overall. I mean, I really do. And you're right. When the Great Recession hit in 2008, there were some serious decisions that had to be made, obviously on the city level, but nationally and everything else. And what I was impressed with the fellow councilors we had, and with Thomas Spell and the mayor, we looked at things, we're very sober about what's going on, because we have no idea what's going to happen in a year or 2 years financially. And so the city made some, actually, they squeezed their budget, unfortunately had to lay some people off. But what was set was a financial plan, long-term, short-term to get us through the recession, but also long-term. And through that process, we ended up having a great bond rating that, and we've, every budget that we've had since then, it's all been positive. It's, we've balanced the budget for years afterwards. And it, again, because of the financial situation with our bond rating, we had the opportunity to go out and do things later on. The biggest one at that time was that we followed through with was the Fisherville Road North State Street project. I mean, that was, and the city paid for the whole thing. There wasn't any state money or federal money. That was all the city. And that was a commitment to do that up the way and through Pinnacook. But after that, some other major ones was the Sewell's Falls Bridge and obviously Main Street and the community center. And we could do those things and still have a very strong financial position. And that was really, in my opinion, was based on what we did in 2008, 2009. So a lot of what's happening today was started back then.
You mentioned bond rating a couple times, and some people might not realize what that is and what it means. Could you just very briefly?
Sure, and what it means is it's like we got a great credit score. And so that when we go out and bond projects, we get a very, very low interest rate that we pay. It's, you know, it's one of the lowest that you can receive from investors. And Standards & Poor's and Moody's rate the city of Concord very, very highly. They, every year we get reports back about the quality of our financial situation, and not only the money, but also the staff that we have to
But
make sure that goes.
Keeping the bond rating down can save a lot of money for
Oh,
taxpayers.
it's, yeah,
too.
hundreds and hundreds of $1,000s a year.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Even a percentage point,
Oh.
can make a big difference because we're talking about major projects.
That's right.
And
You know, you were talking about the downtown a little bit, and I got to tell you a story. Because I know you and the mayor and many others put in a lot of time in getting that thing done. But in my office down at Works last week, I ran into a couple from Lyme, New Hampshire, and they were talking about how wonderful the downtown in Concord is, and they were talking about Hanover and saying, gee, Hanover needs an upgrade just like Concord has had. It's turned into nothing but, well, they lost their bookstore and how wonderful Gibson's was. But they were saying that the people, some of the officials in Hanover, this guy, I'm not sure how he knew this, but said they were looking at what we did in Concord for some advice or some ideas of things that they might be able to do to charge up the atmosphere in Hanover. So that's quite a compliment, I thought. And the gentleman from Lyme was an old timer. He had seen a lot of what's going on, and they talking about how much they really loved coming over here now to see what was happening.
You
Yeah,
know, I had some friends last month. They moved to Portland, Oregon, and they were here visiting, making a tour of New England. And they lived in Concord for about at least 12, 14 years, and they were stunned and amazed when they went downtown on a Friday evening with some other friends, and to see the difference and change, and you know, the activity and everything going on. And they just said it's fabulous. They said Portland's a great city, but it's a fairly large city, and here is this the intimacy
Yeah.
of Concord, the size of Concord. It just made it special to them, and they were very impressed with what we did. And I said it was an easy thing to do. All we had to do is vote the money and put it together, and no big deal, right? But that's
No
an
big deal. How many years did it take?
well, and that's the example of things I was really pleased with, is the way that the city council or the city government, municipal government, worked. I mean, they had a lot of sessions with input from the public, many, you know, dozen, at least a dozen, and working, massaging it, and all the changes from the very beginning, the concepts and everything, so it would work. And there were skeptics. There still are skeptics today. Every once in a while, I'll read about them, or someone will come up and they don't like it, and but they never go. They say
Yeah,
they don't go downtown, so.
yeah, I
And I'm
live,
saying, that's fine, you know?
yeah, I live up on the Heights, so I don't go downtown all that much, but when I do, it's just great. I mean, it's very enjoyable.
And
I really like
the other thing
outcome.
that was a model that I know we're currently doing also, is when when the project went out to bid, it was way over, you know, what our estimates were, a tremendous amount. And but we ended up with a contractor that worked with us. It's almost like a design build type of thing. It wasn't just a flat bid. And so it came in within budget, or a little under budget, but worked in conjunction with the city. And I don't know if you weren't downtown that much, but what they did about, okay, we're gonna work one side of the street, work on that construct, and how they were so cooperative with the merchants, making sure the doorways were open, available, there's access to
Yeah,
the
that's very important.
stores, and
Things going.
they did a fabulous job, they really did. But there's little, like, if someone buys or builds a brand-new house, you still have little quirky things that you have to come back. And I think Glenn was the instigator of this, but for the sidewalks, the brick sidewalks on Main Street where there was a failure due because of the subsurface street. And it's just, again, like building a house and okay, we gotta go in and fix it.
Redo the bricks.
And we did, and the foundation of it,
Yeah,
and so it's
yeah,
been
they
cured.
had to go all the way down.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you bringing that up every time you saw me.
Well, we like to harass you.
Yeah, and working on it. And,
There's nothing that group does better than harass people.
oh,
so.
no, really, I just, that's, again, in the 13 years, I can go back and look at it. The other one is, Sewell's Falls Bridge, it was, it's just, and it's not wrong, I do understand and appreciate it's not wrong about how long it takes for a project to get done, because it's the people's money. And the concept is you do have hearings, you have it, let people understand what's going on. If they vote, they voice an opinion one way that doesn't agree with me, that's fine. But I know in the private sector, it may take literally a bridge, it may take a year. Here, it takes 5-7 years, it's going back and forth with design and everything. But the classic part was, we're going to vote for it, we're going ahead, and then a fellow from Michigan was one that contacted us and was going to sue us because he's an advocate of old bridges,
Oh,
and he didn't want us to tear down the bridge. And,
Michigan, that was.
yeah, and so, okay, so that was months delay. And then the one I really liked during that project was the clams in the river, that we had to grab the clams, the zebra clams or whatever they are, and move them downriver. They took an inventory of them, moved them downriver for the new bridge, then harvest them and move them back to their original location. And I'm going, is this a serious thing? Or
Did we do a big clam study?
We did, you had to,
Yeah,
yep. And thankfully, they're back to where they were originally. And so the question
Have
was.
we polled them to make sure they're happy with their new their
I don't know if
revised
we,
location?
I think we did that 90 days afterwards, but I don't know if there was any more follow-up. Yeah, happy as a clam. And it was like,
I
so,
was gonna say, is it a clam or mussels? Because I know
It
in
might
lakes
have
you
been
don't
mussels.
want zebra
The
mussels in
mussels
your
were trying to
lake.
muscle
Yeah.
the clams
Yeah.
out.
but it was like, so I said, well, how much is this costing? And they said, well, it's under 6 figures to do this.
Oh,
Under
Jesus.
60.
And I'm going, oh, boy. But that's because of the,
Well, I guess there's a
process.
chain, yeah, also there's probably a chain of who eats who.
I don't
Who
know,
eats what
but,
along the way,
so that's,
maybe.
and
Things you
we
don't
did it
plan
right. But we did it right. I might have done it differently, but we're well within.
And I happen to know that you personally inspected that bridge and the river all the way down to the dam. And
Yes.
passed it in a canoe with me many
Years
years
ago.
ago, just to make sure that it would all fit together well.
And the good news, maybe, in this thing, that we actually survived, so we could be here today. Because it was kind of touch and go once we
It had
got to the dam.
freeboard, that old canoe had about 2 inches of freeboard.
And our life preserver, I think, is about the size of that table, right, between the two of us. Not one of the better moves that you ever had.
I ever had, yeah. I wanna know what you think, what's gonna happen out by the mall? Where's that going?
I was thinking about that a couple of days ago, because I was out in that area, and I don't know how much of it's rented, but there's companies in there. I mean,
There's
a
a
fitness center and
Couple of nice things, the
a
charter school.
trampoline.
and-
Yeah, trampoline. So, it's people that's innovative, and they say, we got this space, and
Yeah.
what can we use for it? And it really gets down to obviously financial, because they gotta get the rent down low enough so that people can come in
But the
and do it.
problem is, those organizations are nice as long as the mall owners have to keep sustaining the mall.
Right.
But once it's not economically feasible for them to do it because they lose more and more clients and they don't want to pay the heat and light and all
Oh, yeah.
that stuff. The rates, I mean, even though we've got some nice things in there now, they're paying a really low rate, and that's gonna change at some point.
Well, we should have coffee sometime and really talk about the business plan for this thing, then we can take it nationally with all these
Is
other
there,
laws.
yeah,
imposed.
because
So
there's a
we-
lot of them that
There's
are
a
around
lot
in the
that
same
Right,
just
front.
so I
Gold,
think that
yeah.
if we
That
come
sounds
to-
non-public. It sounds like a
Oh, is this on?
private sector. We're awaiting some results, but we can go down the race right now and say Ward 2, Earl Pierce was unopposed. He'll be a new councilor replacing Alan Hirschlag. Jennifer Kredovics was unopposed. Ward 3, Meredith Hatfield. Ward 4, she was elected earlier this year. Rob Werner in Ward 5 is unopposed. Linda Kennison in Ward 6 unopposed. Keith Nyan, Ward 7 unopposed, all elected. Candace White Bouchard in 9 unopposed. And Zandra Rice Hawkins, who was elected in this past spring. Amanda Grady Sexton is a holdover, and Fred Keach is a holdover at large. So we have Ward 1, Miller and Todd, incumbent Todd, and Mattson and Susie in Ward 8, and then we have the at-large race. We have 3 for 2, Fennessy, Champlin, and Chason running, of which 2 of those 3 will be elected. So we don't have any results in yet.
Charlie, what do you think about all of these unopposed councilors that are getting reelected? Is that a function of the fact that the city's pretty happy with the job the council is doing?
It may well be. It may well be that I think many people have seen being on the school board is a thankless job that could explode, and they may worry that,
You notice I didn't say that the school board was.
No. But I was looking down in today's paper, down in Nashua, there's 9 wards. It looks like 6 of them are opposed. I also think because we had 2 resignations from the council of Shurtleff and
Champlin moved up.
yeah, they moved up, so we had 2 contested races earlier this year, and for somebody to come back. So the other issue we talked a little earlier is the pay isn't the greatest, $1,000 a year. I'm aware of down in Lawrence, they pay $15,000 a year for counselors. I mean, obviously that's Massachusetts, but I was wondering what they pay around the rest of the state. We don't have training courses. I know when you go into the legislature, they have an orientation and training course, so you get in there, you might know, hey, what does leave of absence really mean? Well, like we found out didn't mean what we thought it meant. And should somebody have been asking questions? So maybe we need some training. Maybe we ought to say, $100 a year for legislature's okay, but we really need to pay counselors more. And you might attract some other people that might be able to put some more time in. What do you think about that, Mark?
Well,
Having made all that money
yes.
all those years.
You're retiring on that, right?
Yes, I am. Actually, it ends at the end of the year. That's my retirement. I understand that, but I really think that as long as I lived in Concord since '71 and prior to that, people on the school board and people that served on the city council were doing it as I feel as a civic obligation, civic duty. And it's like being on the board of the Concord Hospital or some other nonprofits that I don't know if they get paid or not, but so it's more of a civic thing. So $1,000 or $15,000, I don't think that's going to change the type of reasoning why people would run for it. I think the last time, looking back, and you may find another one, is the last time we really had a citywide contested race in a lot of wards was several years ago about the Bearcat. And so that brought a lot of people out to run because they had a particular issue about the Bearcat that the council didn't, the council voted for it and they were against it. But what was interesting, Charlie, was that the people that ran, there's so-called supporters that really said, I got your back, we're going to be there for you. They didn't come out and vote. And so that's one thing I found is a key thing is that people can be passionate. And this may be an example tonight with the school board, and I hope I'm wrong, but, you know, you can get 50, 100 people at a meeting, and they're really going to make a difference, but it's an election night, and it doesn't look like there's any more people voting than they did in other years,
We
in an off
we will
year.
soon find out. We have the Ward 1 results in here, and pencils in hand for those of you keeping score. Mayor Boulay, 336, Linda Ray Banfield, 127, 336, 127. Councilor at Large, Byron O. Champlin, 267, Nathan Fennessy, 205, Edith Chason, 190. Ward 1, Councilor, one of the two contested races, Brent Todd, 246, Kevin Miller, 225. So quite a run and quite a challenge. Let's see, and school board, which is a small part of the Concord School District, incumbent Jim Richards, 34 votes, Patrice Myers, 32 votes. Shall we allow the operation of Keno games within the city? Yes. 266, no. 188. Shall we allow the operation of sports book retail locations within the city? 210 yes, 238 no. So voting yes for Keno, which is already up in Allen's anyway,
Right.
which is, I won't say a pop fly, but not, probably less than a mile from the Pennacook line. But sports book locations losing 210 to 238. So, and let me see if I can help you out on turnout. Total 486 votes for turnout, and in 2017 we had 294, in 2015 we had 329. So we had a higher turnout. Certainly a contested ward race would draw it out, but the school board certainly has very minimal impact up there. It's mostly Merrimack Valley District. So any...
You got two pretty tight races. The second at-large race looks pretty tight,
Yep.
and the Kevin Miller and Brent Todd. I mean,
Yeah, and Myers and Richards, the incumbent, only winning by 2 votes, but so in a good turnout, 486. Well, interestingly, I mentioned to some of you, doing the numbers, you can pull it off the city website. Doing the numbers, the turnout the last 3 municipal elections has been between 15 and 16%. So the 486 certainly shows it's up higher. Ward 6. Ward 6 results, Mayor Jim Boulay, 248, Linda Ray Banfield, 90. At large, Champlin, 220, the incumbent, Fennessy, 178, Edith Chason, 136. School Board, Dave Parker, 197, Max Schultz, 130. Keno, 179, yes, 163 no. And then sports book retail, 162 yes, 175 no. Again, the same trend, yes for Keno and no for sports book locations. And I believe Ward 6 would have the draft in it. I believe that's part of Ward 6. They vote across the street.
Yeah.
So, so Parker with a 67 vote lead in the smallest of the 5, 6, and 7 wards, and 357 votes ballots cast. Last 2 elections, 275, 293. So votes cast seems to be up. Ballots cast seems to be up, whether that's school board related or it seems to be more emotional than Keno related.
Right. You know, looking back at the contested elections, in the wards where there was a contested election, some of the wards approached like 20%. So that could be part of the reason for big turnout.
One being
first.
up, yeah. But anyway, I mean, the mayor certainly after 2 wards looks like he's well on his way to re-election. And
We've got at Councilor at Large, Byron Champlin is leading after 2 wards were reported, 487. These are informal results. Nathan Fennessy has 383, and Edith Chason has 326. So the incumbents are leading on that.
Yeah, and Chason is, I think she has run in the past. She was
Yes.
in the Ward 4 race last spring, and an auditor with the Lottery Commission, but also with a Masters of Public Administration, someone who has some qualifications that could be readily
Yeah,
usable on the council.
I think all 3 are
And we have an attorney
have
and,
credible,
sure.
credible backgrounds.
So, and I was going down the list here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we have 5 females on the council, and Mattson is up for re-election, she would make 6. I think, I haven't really kept track of the gender split, maybe Mark would, but it seems to me that we're getting near a high water mark for females on the council. Ward 2, Mayor Boulay, 212, doubles up Linda Banfield, 106. Councilor at Large, Byron Champlin, 174, Nathan Fennessy, 161, Edith Chason, 124, Earl Pierce, unopposed, 265, Jim Richards, for school board, 106, Patrice Myers, 104, so
Still close.
two vote margin, certainly that one is, that's got 4 wards to it, 3 and 4 as well. The total turnout was 324. The all-important Keno, 192 yes, 123 no. Sports book locations in Ward 2, 171 yes, 140 no, so passing, both the questions passing in that ward. So,
Of the 3 wards in, there's a greater turnout than there was in
yeah,
2017.
324 in Ward 2, and
Yeah, and both in 1, 2, and 6, the turnout is greater than 2017 and in 2015.
So that must be an indicator if the school board
Might be
election.
what's bringing them in.
Yeah.
And that actually is different from the preliminary results we got on turnout, on 2 and 3.
A lot of late voters.
2 and 3,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, we had only heard, you had only heard Ward 1 was the big turnout, which
Right.
was 486, which I think is the highest turnout so far, but obviously with a contested ward. The other ward officials, I don't think any of them are really contested, so we won't read those results. If they were there counting the ballots at the wards, they know what the results are, and I don't think anyone's going to lose any sleep because we don't announce those. But let's see, Keno lost by, last time, I did the numbers here, by 526 votes. The big ward against it was Ward 5, voting, a margin of voting it down by 312. See if I can do some of the numbers
Well,
here.
it's won all 3 of the awards so far have been yeses for it. And not so much for the sports betting, or the 2 out of the 3 of the wards have voted against.
Well, in last time around, Keno won Pennacook by 16 votes. It was 127 to 111, and this time it's 266 and 188. So what's that? 78 vote margin. So there's a fairly big shift. Ward 2 last time was a 40 vote margin to pass. And this time, it's looking like 69 votes, so it looks like, Keno has got some legs. Sports betting looks like it might have a long, closer night, but we'll see. I suspect Ward 5 may be, we'll see what they...
Did 6 go for or against on Keno last time?
6 was down by minus 6 votes. So this time
it was up by about 16 or something.
Yeah, let me check it here. So anyway, so, you know, and I mean, I've never played Keno, and I don't know if it, 16 votes, yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I've seen it, I've sat there at restaurants, you can pick quick picks, you can pick so many numbers, you can watch it like you do bingo, or you can just go throw your ticket in as you're leaving, and they'll tell you whether you won or you lost. But I mean,
It's a
you
pretty
can,
good source of revenue for some of these places that have it.
yeah, they get a certain percentage, and the money on Keno, I mean, there was an organized group. I saw what Keno 603 had some signs outside Ward 4. The Monitor, there was an ad with vote yes on Keno and sports betting, and the group was, I've never heard of, paid for by Democrats and Republicans for a better Concord. We'll figure out who they are later here. But Ward 3,
Ooh, there's a big change.
Ward 3, James Boulay, the mayor, 317, Linda Banfield, 58, Byron Champlin, 250, Nathan Fennessy, 230, Edith Chason, 123, so some strong trends in that race. Kredovich, unopposed, who's reelected. Ward 3, Jim Richards, 231, Patrice Myers, 122, so 109 vote margin, and would be...
So no longer a four
No.
vote.
Yeah, and it looks like it would be
margin.
extremely difficult. On Keno, this is Ward 3, which is golf course is where they vote, I believe, and comes down North State Street. I think the prison is in Ward 3. Keno, 191 yes, no, 176, so that's what, 15 votes. Shall we allow sports bet, book, 155 yes, 213 no. So total vote turnout 385. Are you getting some results over there too, or you?
It's the same thing.
Just
Same
Just
thing,
getting
okay,
another
just to
copy,
follow
yeah.
along.
Yeah, it's nice
Okay,
if
so
this side
in-
gets it too,
in,
isn't it?
Past election, it was a 36 vote loss in Ward 3 for Keno. It was a 15 vote win. So, you know, a flip to just,
Looks like it's flipping on Keno, but sports betting looks...
well, first time around may not go. And you know, what I've heard is, I mean, there's mobile sports betting. You don't have to be in Concord in order to, you know, you're not being shut out from betting. You can do it either online or you can do it at a...
They do have safeguards that you can't bet on any sports that are in New Hampshire, any games that are played in New Hampshire.
Yep.
No high school sports, no college teams from New Hampshire, or any of the games, as I said, that are
All right.
are played in New Hampshire.
All right, and here is Ward 4. James Boulay, the mayor. Jim Boulay, 343. Linda Banfield, 77. So it looks like that race is over. We could comfortably call him as reelected for number 7, I believe, and he may stop in, I've been told. Council at Large, Byron Champlin, 287. Nathan Fennessy, 206, and Edith Chason, 152. Meredith Hatfield, unopposed, 357. This is the final ward for Board of Education. Jim Richards, 227, and Patrice Myers, 129. So Richards, the incumbent, is reelected after 2 close races up in 1 and 2,
Right.
which I believe is where Patrice Myers lives up in
That's
that
right.
area.
That's right.
Ballots cast, 433. Ward 4, Keno, 184 yes, 227 no, and sports betting, 150 yes and 251 no. So last time on Keno, it was minus 52, and here it is minus 43. So Ward 4 consistently voting the same. The turnout, 433, which is higher than 396 last time around. So the turnout is somewhat higher than it has been in past years, but I guess I won't say significantly so. Any tabulations over there you want to share on our
Well,
too early to
it
tell.
looks like it's opening up on the council at large with Byron Champlin and Nathan Fennessy. Look like they're starting to open up the leads, Byron especially.
Yeah.
It's been the same in every ward. Chaplin's been the leader, Hennessy has come in second, and Chase on third.
Yeah.
And that's consistent all the way
It
through.
was pretty tight in that Ward 1 vote
Yeah.
between Fennessy and
Chason, yeah.
Chason, but it's opening up now.
I'm just curious of what your thoughts are on the school board race with Jim Richards certainly doing well. I don't know if that's what ward he lives in, but.
Yeah, he's in probably Ward 3.
So over the last 4 weeks, 5 weeks, there's torches and pitchforks out. And so is this thoughtful voting and saying that even though you're on the school board or a member of the school board, that he certainly seems to have the support, obviously, of people, and instead of just,
Myers, what I've read, and thank the Monitor for doing such a good job on repeated articles and the stimulus. Myers didn't attend the debate. I mean, she's on a condo board, I guess, or some community board, and that was their annual meeting. So she wasn't there, so she lost that visibility. She apparently has some experience that could be fruitful and useful in public service. And I'm not sure.
Well, she was a state worker, and she's next Air Force.
Retired military. So, but I didn't see it as an overly aggressive campaign. I mean, we'll see what happens up on the Heights with Ward 8, 9, and 10 between Cannon and Wicks. We have Ward 5 here. Ward 5, the mayor, 672, 89 for Banfield. Councilor at large, Byron Champlin, 592. Fennessy, 530. Edith Chason, 145. Rob Werner is reelected, unopposed. David Parker, 388. Max Schultz, 358. So Parker wins the second ward by 30 votes. Total votes, 795. The Keno vote, which was a very critical one last time around. Yes, 234. No, 519. Sports book, 202 yes, no, 541. So last time, let's see what we got here. So we've got 285 was the margin this year for no for Keno. It was 312 last year. The total vote, 795 was the total vote in Ward 5 this year. It was 787 last year, which was a 21%.
That's still a big negative vote on both of these.
Yeah, and
items.
I would conjecture at this point, sports betting has no lead. That's gone. It's not going to pass. Keno seems to be still alive. We'll see what
But barely, I think. Losing by 300, or no, 200 and...
285, I think.
Yeah, in that one ward. And, the other wards, not too much difference. Nowhere near the same kind of difference. This Ward 5 is a...
moral conscience of the community, it appears to be.
Crazy Ward 5, I live there, so...
Which probably doesn't surprise a lot of people, and
Yeah.
maybe that's an eloquent way of saying it, I don't know. So, any other observations or race,
Well,
let's see, your race is over on the school board.
School board, it is over, and
So we got 7 in? No, we don't have 7 in.
I have 7 right here.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Mayor Boulay, 588 to 140, Champlin, 486, Fennessy, 424, Chason, 241, so that looks like that one's over. Nyan reelected, unopposed. Dave Parker, 362, Max Schultz, 356, so Parker won all
Parker's
3
won,
wards.
yeah.
Parker's elected. Both
Very tight, though.
Both, yeah, well, both were very active in standing up and speaking out on the school issue. 758 ballots cast. Keno, 312 yes, 408 no. Sports betting, 261 yes, 458 no. Last time on Keno in 7, it was, excuse me here, it was minus 93, and it's just about the same, minus 96. So, you know, so Keno is looking pretty edgy at this point. We'll see what some of the other results say.
So it seems to be on the school board side that it's almost tied. You know, we have 3 elections every year on the school board. New Hampshire loves to vote. We vote several times a year, and we vote all our state elections every 2 years, except the one that's for a Senate, federal Senate. And so one of the things that I think causes people to, in addition to what already was said, causes people to not have, or races not to have several people going after it, is that we elect and re-elect people so often that you're going to get another chance. In school boards, it's you know, every 3 years you get a shot. Our local state reps, every 2 years we get a shot. And so every 3,100 and some people get to have a representative at the State House, and they don't like what that rep's doing, they get another shot. So I think that may also, people tend to serve on good behavior in the minds of the voters. But in school board, which probably brought out a lot of voters this time, in wards 5, 6, and 7, we didn't have an incumbent. So both candidates were kind of were very concerned about what was happening in the leadership issues and school safety.
And it was very tight. You know, 6 in Ward 7, a net of 6 votes positive for Parker, and Ward 5, 30 votes positive for Parker, and then 6, 67 votes.
67.
So it was very close. In wards 1, 2, 3, and 4, the incumbent did win, and Jim Richards, you know, he ran unopposed last time. He's from the area. He chose that community because of the school system, and so I think he's been a hard worker on the board. I think you're going to see the perception of the election is going to be what happens in 10, 9, and 8, and what Wicks and Cannon do. So maybe we have some of the results.
Yeah, we've actually done pretty well. I think we have 1 through 7. We have everything west of the river in, and here we have 9, which is the center. Mayor Jim Bollet, 267. Banfield, 76. Champlin, 185. Fennessy, 168. Chason, 148. Candace White Bouchard, 308, unopposed, re-elected. Virginia, Gina Cannon, 176. Pam Wicks, the incumbent, 145, 31-vote margin. Total ballots cast, 363. Operation of Keno, 155 yes, 177 no. Sportsbook, 140 yes, 192 no. Ward 9 was last time was minus negative 32 on Keno. It's negative 22. So turnout 363 compared with last time 372. So excuse me, yeah, 372 last time. So pretty much the same. You know, they're both going to get turned down. It certainly looks that way. the margin in Ward 5, you know, you don't make up a 250, 300 vote margin by winning by 5, 10,
Right.
15, or 25. You need to win serious. Last time, again, yeah, we got a video here. They're going to give us a break and give you a break as well. We're going to go to a video here that our staff has put together.
So for all elections held in the city, which could be municipal, state, or federal, the city clerk is the chief election officer, if you will, for elections in the city of Concord. So our office, the city clerk's office team, which there's 4 of us, we're responsible for everything from assisting with ballot preparation, verifying ballots, getting out absentee ballots, ensuring that there's enough ballots on election day for all the polling locations, booths, setup, everything that happens in a given election starts here. So residents have the opportunity to register to vote here in the city clerk's office prior to election day. Typically, there's a cutoff approximately 10 days before any given election. For the upcoming election on November 6th, the cutoff is this Thursday, October 25th. So residents come in, they have their photo ID. As long as their photo ID has their current address on it, that's all they need to register to vote. If they don't have their photo ID and or proof of domicile or citizenship, we assist them in having them complete affidavits so that they can register to vote in any case. Other than that, they can register to vote on election day at the polls. So you want to bring your photo ID with you. Ideally, your photo ID has your current address on it. If it does not, residents bring proof of residency. It could be a utility bill, a lease, mortgage papers, a bank statement, a car registration. They register and they're on their way.
The elections. A lot of people don't realize the pressure that goes on with the elections, how much work goes into it behind the scenes. The fact that we're a capital city, it is not unusual for other governmental agencies at much higher levels than us to consult Janice in terms of how things are done, and I see that. And I see how she explains to people the way the election laws work, how we do things here. You know, as you know, we have 10 wards, and everything from the primary, national primary when it comes here to even local school elections. And she handles it all flawlessly, and I guess it isn't a story, but her response to me when we talk about elections is, you want to make sure we're not on the front page of the national paper if something goes wrong. And that's the great thing I have with Janice, is that I know she'll always do it right. She'll always, she's that conscientious. She won't let it, even a problem that comes up, spiral out of control. She will take it, she'll manage it, hands-on, she does it herself and make sure it's done well.
Well, we have a great team of elected ward officials too. There's a moderator, supervisors of the checklist, ward clerks in every one of our wards, ballot inspectors, great city team. Public properties guys help us get everything out. We are here to troubleshoot, hopefully minimal troubleshooting, just to assist, answer questions about where do I vote. People at the last minute still need information about that. We go out and do visits to all polling locations to make sure everything runs smoothly, but honestly, we could not run elections without the amazing team that we have.
I've just always believed that it's a responsibility for citizens to take part in the government and come out and vote. I'm 75 and retired, but I've even started running for office because I think we need to have people running to give the choice to the public.
There's nothing more important than local elections. There's a ton that happens at the city level, but I would also just point to my children who are over there holding signs, and I think it's incredibly important for adults to involve children and show them that the democratic process is meaningful and involve them at an early age.
Well, it's important at a local level, especially because your decisions make a direct impact to the future of our city and the decisions that are made in it. I encourage everybody to come out and vote, no matter who you're voting for, to have an impact and, you know, get the people in there that can make a difference and really have a voice in our own city, which is awesome.
If people have issues they want fixed, they have to come and vote so that it can be fixed by someone that wants to listen to their problems.
I'm here today at the polls at Bonnie Street, the Immaculate Conception Church. It's been a great turnout today, and I'm really heartened to see that because the local municipal elections, a lot of times we don't necessarily see a large turnout as we would like, but it's so important because it affects everything in the city, and it affects your taxes, it affects housing opportunities, job opportunities, economic development in the city. And all of that feeds back to being a part of the community and the importance of all the folks in the community being involved in some fashion or other. And this is everybody's opportunity on this one day to come out and express their opinions about, it's really your evaluation of me and how I've done, how the other folks on the City Council have done, and you get to cast your vote and make your decision based on that.
So we're back, and that was a video of what goes on around the city and how the election works. We have Ward 8 here. Mayor Boulay, 273, Banfield, 106, Byron Champlin, 210, Nathan Fennessy, 191, Edith Chason, 155, Gail Mattson, 274, Dennis Susi, 103, Gina Cannon, 207, Pam Wicks, 148, Keno, yes, 211, no, 174, Sportsbook, no, yes, 171, no, 2009, and we have the winner of runoff number 4, Gail Mattson for Ward 8 with us here, and tell us your secret for success. Hard work.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, by the way. Thank you. I wanted to thank Concord CCTV for this opportunity to speak, and also the voters who supported me. And the secret for success is I'm consistent and I work hard.
Okay, and this is, so you're going into your 4th term?
This will be my 4th term, so
Okay.
yep, 2-year terms. So come January, we'll start it all up again. We will.
And we have, beside you, we have the re-elected Ward 3 Councilor Jennifer Kretovic.
Hey, everybody, how are you?
Good to see you. Good to see you.
It's nice and warm in here. It was getting a little chilly over at the golf course. You know, once the sun goes down, the cold starts to set in.
Well, I understand there's no problem getting you to the golf course regularly.
Oh, absolutely not.
So you're happy you're voting in your...
The problem is getting me to the golf course without my golf clubs.
Oh,
That's a
okay.
different story.
All right. So what do you see? And we were talking earlier a little bit about, not that it's significant, but there'll be 6 females on the council.
Isn't that great?
Is that a high water mark for that? I think so.
Yeah, I think it is. Hey, yeah, man, we're going to cheer that.
All right. Well,
Yeah, I mean, it'll be the first time that we top 1/3 of the council. We've had 5 female councilors before. But I'm going to tell you the diversity of the council comes from the opinions and the representation from the different wards, not from the gender. There's going to be a day when we don't care what the gender is of the people sitting at the table, and that's the day we really want to cheer. I think the mix of the council, especially having Nate Hennessy come on board with us, and Earl Pierce, it's going to be a different voice at the table, but certainly a weighty voice as well. It's nice. It's nice to have that diversity. We're going to miss Mark Cohen because, of course, he always used to bring us treats, right? And
he announced he's running for the school board next time.
Yeah, that was probably a good time. Oh, he brought you guys candies. Well, that makes sense. And then Earl Pierce, because he comes more from the business community, he's been retired, so he's going to represent the retired citizens, which I think is really good. And then, let's see, who else? Oh, Alan Hirschlag, because he's coming off of the board. The city council, I'm going to have a new next door neighbor. And I've had shifting neighbors over the years. You know, Byron moved over a couple chairs. Now he's going to be across from me. I can make faces at him, throw things
When
at
the
him.
music stops, we'll have 14 at the table, and
There you go.
6 of them will be women, and the mayor at the
Yeah,
front.
that's going to be fantastic.
We have the last ward here, Ward 10, and we'll read that. Mayor Boulay, 645, Linda Banfield, 125, Byron Champlin, 497, Nathan Fennessy, 428, Edith Chason, 233, Xander Rice Hawkins, unopposed, 605, Gina Cannon, 394, Pam Wicks, 350, so that race is over, and the incumbent Wicks is voted out. Total vote, 799. Keno, 367, yes. This is Ward 10, East Concord, 390, no. Sportsbook, 292, yes, 460, no. So without doing the numbers, it appears Keno has lost, maybe not by as much as last time. Sports betting book probably is 35 to 40% yes, I would guess. So what's your take on the impact on the city? Will all the gamblers be leaving town, or they'll be heading up to Allen's and Boscawen?
Well, I guess Concord's consistent. They voted it down last time. There was a very quiet pro-campaign. It just came about really in the last week, I think, that you started seeing signs and people interested. I don't know what, why Keno lost by less. Keno said that they could give 50% of the revenue, whereas sports betting, it was almost 20%. And a cursory look at that, it looks like Keno is a better bargain, but that's not necessarily true. I think that perhaps the case just wasn't made, and I think it was a stronger vote last time. There was opposition last time that was vocal. I didn't hear much opposition this time, but then I didn't hear many proponents of it until
Toward the end. Toward the end. Well, I mean, obviously the campaign was, for I assume, from people that would have some interest in having it at their facility. But Glenn,
I don't recall anybody when we had the public hearing with regards to both the sports betting as well as Keno. There was not a lot of people that were against it that spoke before the city council. It was really generally restaurateurs that would be participating in this that were coming forward and speaking on behalf of the sports betting and Keno. That would be my assessment, right?
yeah, I know the, what is he, the commissioner McIntyre showed up, and
Yep.
he
Charlie
advocated putting it on the ballot.
It's the guy's job. Give him credit, right?
Yeah, and what about lack of contested races? I mean, you're on the council. Nashua had, looks like 9 wards. Looks like they had 5 or 6 contested races. Were the resignations earlier this year for St. Hilaire and Shirtlift? Did that bring out the competition and then that resolved things?
I think we consistently see competition in certain wards. I don't want to say anything negative about anybody that runs, because it is not easy to serve in that volunteer capacity. It takes way more time and effort than you would think. And you know what? It takes a lot of brain power too. I think that we all go in for good reasons, but the reason they stay are better reasons. And I could take 100 phone calls and 95 of them are going to be negative. Those 5 that are positive and you can make a real difference to the individuals that you serve in your ward, that's what makes it all worthwhile. The policy piece, it's going to be taken per policy that comes before us. The budget is never an easy process, and it does take some time to learn that. And I think that if you're looking at a $100 million budget, and you don't really know finances, you're not likely going to raise your hand. But those other issues about serving your community and serving in your ward and passing policy, those are the reasons people step up and volunteer. But it's worthwhile. I would.
What about, we talked a little earlier about the legislature has an orientation session. I mean, there's probably 25% turnover or more every year, and they have, what about orientation sessions
We have
for?
orientation.
You do have them
Yep,
for new
and it is
councilors?
open to all of the city councilors. Our city manager, Thomas Bell, he organizes it. Of course, he's our person that we oversee as far as city staff. Tom is actually an excellent person as our city manager for that orientation piece. He will encourage the new counselors to meet with each one of the department heads so that he can learn, or they can learn about the facilities. And it's open to all of us. We can always get re-educated. Things do change over time. Processes change over time. You get to go to the waterworks facility. You can go to the sewage treatment plant. You can go to general services, the fire departments, meet the police department.
You missed a few departments, but you can
Yeah, I know.
stop. You
There's
can
a
stop
lot
though.
of departments.
What about, we talked earlier about compensation. I mentioned I'm familiar with Lawrence. They pay their city councilors, I think there's 9 of them, $15,000 a year. I mean, we pay, what, $1,000 a year?
The mayor makes $1,200, $1,250.
Well, but this attitude, I mean, in 1880, the governor was paid in New Hampshire was paid $2,000, and they paid legislators $100 a year. So, you know, the governor's obviously gotten a few pay raises, but the legislators haven't. But I mean, do you think if there was more pay for councilors, that it was raised up even a few $1,000s, it might attract more people around? What do you think, Gail?
I don't think people typically do this job for the money. I don't think that the money, even if they did a pay raise, would be commensurate with the amount of hours that you would put in, and so that wouldn't be the attraction, I don't think, for most people. I think each counselor probably has their own personal reasons for doing it, but I think in general, well, I'll speak for myself, I want to make a difference, and I hopefully feel that I am making that impact, and so it isn't really about, it's not about the money as much as it is about giving back to your community and trying to do the right thing.
All right. And Rosemary Lanier is working away on some numbers over there. I gave you, we delegated some assignments. Do you have any final numbers or comments about some of the things?
On the overall turnout, it's up close to 9% over
Last time?
the last time, 2017. 3 wards went down just slightly, and some took much bigger jumps, like Ward 1, for instance. And so, you know, in general, it's good to see everything go up a little bit anyway. And some were up like 20 to 80 people. You know,
Yeah.
actual people.
Well, Ward 8, Gail's ward, 403 ballots were cast, and
Yeah, that's a big jump. on
372, 395, but but this is the 4th time around. And you won by 10 the first time. It keeps getting bigger and bigger, so we'll call you Landslide Gail Mattson now that it's getting up there. But we talked with Mark Cohen about some of the other issues going on in the city. He kind of gave us a history of going back through the recession and the bonding and the bridges and relocating clams on the river. But I mean,
Riveting, right? Riveting information.
riveting. But I mean, what do you see as the issues facing, Gail? We'll start with you, facing the council coming up in the next few years.
Well, we always have the ever-present issue of taxes. You know, I mean, that's overwhelmingly, you know, when I'm going around and talking with people, especially at re-election time, and everywhere, that's one of their major issues. And if you look at it, we have such a large percentage of property in Concord that we are unable to tax. So we're already running at a disadvantage over other cities with that particular aspect. And so one of the things that we can do is try to break that up with spreading the taxes out over. So a lot of my focus, and I think a lot of the council as well, is to try to bring in business.
You know, you also have a large part of that budget that you don't control.
That's
That
true.
is very true.
Which is also, I presume, very frustrating sometimes.
Well, we try
And
to.
now, that big chunk of the budget is being managed by who? We got a school board, but we don't have any managers managing that. I mean, we got a temporary one coming in, but this is something that the city ought to be somewhat concerned about, I think. I mean, that's a lot of the money that we pay in taxes.
Well, let's ask the question. I mean, I think Patch and Tony Chanella spoke to me a little bit about, you know, the school board has its own fiscal autonomy. I mean,
Yeah.
is would the council stepping in, is it a budgetary issue with taking over the school board, or is
Well, I
it
don't
more
think
of
they
it
can step in.
No.
No, it would take
Yeah.
three or
Yeah.
four, it would
We'd
take a
have to change the
legislative
charter.
bill.
Right, the
It
charter
would
would have
take,
to change.
it would take charter changes, but I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not sure the issues the school board is going through now is something that the council would have the oversight on. They might have the oversight, I know in other communities where Franklin says, we'll approve your school budget or we won't, which is about the limit of it. So would that change things in Concord, Gail, do you think, or?
No, I don't particularly think that. I think we've always worked very cooperatively with the school board in the past. You know, I know that they're facing some terrible issues right now, but I feel that if, you know, people have said, are you interested, or does the council have an interest in taking it on? I think you've actually addressed it in the fact that, you know, the budget is not the issue that
Yeah.
everyone is really interested in. Or they are, to be fair, they are, but there's other overwhelming issues that are facing them at the moment, and so,
But the reciprocal, I mean, the result of that, those other issues, is that budget now, all of that money, who's managing that money? I mean, I understand the overriding issues that we're
Yeah,
trying to sort out.
It's the business administrator that is overseeing that budget right now, because the budget's already been passed,
Yeah.
and now it's in the hands of the allocation. So the budget piece is done. The other community aspects are really what the community needs to see, and that the cultural change at our schools really needs to happen. This question about changing the charter, we can't forget that Merrimack Valley has a piece of Concord in their school district. And to simply say that we're going to change the charter, does that mean we're going to pull out all of the students from Merrimack Valley that then now need to go to Concord School District? That is a way greater conversation that goes far beyond the city council. That's a community conversation that needs to happen. But from a budgetary standpoint, if you are in the Merrimack County School District, the reason your taxes are so much higher is their tax rate is that much higher. The city portion is the same. And, you know, the mayor has said it best. You only need to look to Manchester to see what it's like to see a school budget be gutted, because that has happened in the past, and it becomes a political conversation. We are not a political board, and it's one of the things I'm most proud of our city council. We are not political. I can't look around the table and tell you what people's party affiliations are. We literally sit there at the table and we vote according to the people we serve, and they are a mix of all parties. My ward is never going to be the same as Gail's ward, and I expect her to vote what is appropriate for her people and her community, her area of the city, and not mine. And when there is something happening in her ward, for example, the potential gateway development that's coming to exit 13, I want her to tell me her voice, because it impacts her community area far more than it does mine. But I think far and away the most important thing that's coming down the pipeline for us is if the state were to get funding for that I-93 expansion, when we are a community, and all communities that live and die by property taxes, and the state is considering expanding that highway in our area that is 264 acres of developable land adjacent to 93 and the downtown, that means we are going to lose 264 acres of land that could be commercial use and help us relieve the burden of our taxpayers all across the city, not just in Merrimack County School or the Merrimack Valley School District, but Concord School District, all of us, every single one of us. We need to pay that. We have a highway that runs in the middle of our city, and the state wants to make it even bigger. That's a community conversation. That's my thought, but that's why I'm here.
Well, what do you do now? I mean, also, people passing through Concord, but even trying to get into Concord on big weekends and stuff, it is getting crazy. I mean.
Yep, you can see people that are getting off of the highway at exit 18 and coming down through Mountain Road. They'll cross over the Sewell Falls Bridge now that it's open. They will carry through on Fisherville Road. But I will also tell you, look at all the stores that are open on Main Street that now have businesses on Sunday. It's only been 10 years since we were talking about a Main Street that didn't have any businesses open on Sunday, but for a handful. You know, there were those anchor stores that stayed open, and now these businesses are thriving on the weekends. So there is the pro and there is the con. If we're only talking about traffic on a Friday night heading up to the Lakes region or on a Sunday coming through and people are getting off the highway and they're participating in our economy, there is the good of that. I think that there will be a great opportunity at exit 17 when we get a grocery store that comes to that development, that then we will see the influx for Pennacook as well.
People are getting off that road. Like the other day, it was backed up coming north, all the way back down to the toll road, to the toll booth from up here in exit 14.
So there's plenty of ways to expand the highway and to move traffic through without having to further divide our city and go into an area.
I couldn't agree with you more. The problem is it's taken so
Devil's
many years
advocate.
to come up with a solution, and now the state's trying to just ram something through. But
There's-
meantime, we got people getting off that highway, speeding through back roads. You know, something's got to happen. And it seems like nobody knows how to make something that makes sense happen. You know, the state comes up with something, they don't care what the heck happens to the city of Concord. And it's very, I mean, we were lucky to even get any say, and they didn't even want to hear from us for a while, was my understanding.
It felt like that for sure.
Yeah.
My take, I grew up in Massachusetts. I come up here to go to school, and I stayed. One of the reasons I didn't go back to Boston is I didn't like sitting in traffic jams. And, you know, to the extent that if we're looking at 4 lanes each way, it's like we're moving them up and we're moving them back. The people that are moving up and moving back are used to sitting in traffic jams. And to the extent you could talk to some people about peak loads and how big you build the roads and how much they're going to be used. But I mean, it seems to me that, you know, they're moving the traffic jam to the Kankamankas Highway on Columbus Day. So are we going to build 8 lanes so they can get up there quicker and back? So I mean, I'm not sure that rationale has come forward or been brought forward, but it's not like, you know, Farmer Brown is coming in from Boscawen and he's mad because he's sitting in a traffic jam, because he's not the one causing the traffic jam.
Oh, no, because he knows on Sunday not to go that
Well,
route, go the other way,
and
or
I
go
know-
up to Franklin, et cetera. So.
And I know on race weekend, I go east-west. I don't go north-south. And the same on Friday afternoons, I'll come up through Dunbarton for a nice scenic ride and stay off of 93. So I mean, if you that's how you learn to drive in Boston. Somebody would say, well, why aren't you going down Storrow Drive? I said, because the Red Sox are playing today and it's easier to go down the other way. So what happens is you learn to know what you're anticipating. You don't build 8-lane highways when you don't need an 8-lane highway for, you know, but for maybe.
But it's been getting steadily worse.
It is. And traffic is like water. It's going to find a way. And it's going to try and find the path of least resistance. And so you can build the highway, but if it starts to clog up, they will still continue to find the path of least resistance.
So what's your take on this, Roger?
Well, I'd be interested in hearing what the councilors have to say about a bypass that would divert traffic around and leave kind of the structure as it is now? Or do you see improving what the road that goes through Concord? Usually retailers want to see traffic coming into town. If we make a bypass, is that an economic cost too? What's your thought on that?
I actually hadn't considered the bypass part of it. What we've been encouraging people to do at the moment was to get more involved, because we've been going to the DOT meetings up on Hazen Drive for some time, and I think that's important that, you know, there's quite a few people sitting, but not very many are getting up to speak, and we'd like to see more, because we want people to weigh in on that, because the state isn't going to take much notice if there's not really much response. For us, you know, we do want them coming off. I mean, Jennifer said it very well. We want them to be coming, to stopping, I mean, if there is an exit, development at exit 13 and one at exit 17, and if there are ways for them to get off and on easily, and it's convenient for them to stop and spend their money, we absolutely would like to have that happen. 4 lanes at the cost of, 274 acres of prime land, that's a touchy subject. I'd rather not see that go that route, and if we can find a way to shift slightly so that we can get what we want, that'd be great, but 4 lanes, it's a question, do we need all of them? Maybe, maybe not, but I haven't considered, because I have to do some more thinking. I hadn't considered I think that would probably not be a good idea. I think that we would.
It'd be too expensive to go across the river.
Well,
It'd be
there's a
going
lot
down.
more expense, and then we're dealing with, as you say, now they're not going to come and spend their money. So if it's not convenient for them to get through, I think we have to work on the straight route, but how do we find that sweet spot, that compromise that works for everybody?
And I do think, sorry. I do think at one time there was a conversation about a bypass that would leave like exit 12 and go out to 106. 106 cannot handle that congestion anymore, so the idea of a bypass, where are we bypassing to? Another congested area really creates kind of an issue.
Yeah. And they were talking, another thing, we were talking about adding to maybe business downtown, but one of the things they're talking about is eliminating exit 14.
That's true. Because of the congestion there, one of the other ideas that some of the city representatives had spoken to the DOT about is just the expansion of ideas that they haven't really thought about, is that they could lower the highway and we'll go over Loudon Road in order to keep that exit.
Right.
So that, because the state has concerns about maintaining bridges, because bridges are expensive to replace. So you take the low road, we'll take the high road, but keep our exit for us, because we have a lot of business that
That's right.
built up around there.
Close that exit.
Yep. And I think the other part we need to consider is money is a factor, but look at what's been done down south for the I-93 expansion. They have some gorgeous exits. And that has really eaten into the budget that has kept this from coming up north into our area. So if we want to get what we want to get, they need to come up with the dollars to make it happen so that our community doesn't suffer from this.
Well, when they expanded the Spalding Turnpike, or Route 3, what is it now? Down
3A? You mean like the Everett Turnpike?
Everett Turnpike, yeah.
Yep. Down
When they expanded that, they told everybody it was going to be paid for by a toll down in Nashua.
That toll.
And that's, we spent the money, and then they decided they wouldn't put the toll in. And
That reminds me
so
of-
we're paying for that.
That reminds me of the New York State Thruway, because they started that out as a toll road just to pay for the road, and then it wasn't going to be a toll road anymore. That has
How
yet
many
to
years
happen.
ago was that?
Just reversed, they kept it forever, but
They
down
kept it,
there,
right.
they actually had the booths built in, and they ripped them all down.
Yeah.
So we never got the revenue from that.
Progress, right?
Well, Gail, let me ask you, the old Concord Drive-In, the development they're talking down there, I mean, have you getting any reaction from your constituents, or is that something a little too far ahead for them to?
I haven't had a lot of response just yet, although one person did say to me today, have you considered traffic, which here we are discussing the same thing. And yes, I would imagine, that's one of the things that we will have a conversation about. There's already, there is already a light there at that intersection. Obviously, it would be preferable to keep traffic, going through that intersection versus having a bunch of curb cuts that will drop traffic out onto Manchester Street at that location where the traveling, I think it is east, drops from 2 lanes into 1, and if you have too many people coming up from too many side places, it's going to get difficult. But I think, again, that's going to be with sequencing and timing, and there will be time to work through that.
I didn't read too much, but I mean, the concept I had in the 80s, in Pennacook, we had Island Shores that was built, and I mean, to some way of thinking, maybe it's going to be a little higher rise and some retail, but it seems to me you may end up with, at least behind it or to the back portion, an Island Shores type living arrangement, maybe with some taller buildings, I'm not sure, and then retail or commercial toward the front. Is that what the concept is?
Yeah, I think that's true, that you're, as you're coming in on the side that's closest to Manchester Street is more of the commercial part, and as you work your way back, you'll see more of the residential part. I like the idea, obviously, of the water access, and I really like the idea of them developing, I mean, I do think that Concord has traditionally been underserved in terms of the way we treat our waterfront and what we might be able to do with it. I mean, there's plenty of places to look to see how nicely that it can actually be such a, such an attraction for, and such a wonderful thing for so many of us to use that live here too. But there's a lot to be said for having an attractive waterway.
I was going to say, go ahead, Rosemary.
Can I ask, one of the big problems is tied into economic development, though, is housing costs.
Yeah.
What is the council considering and looking at? I've heard, well, a little bit maybe about changing some of the zoning to allow for.
The zoning's going to be a big conversation for the past year and a half, 2 years. We have a consultant that has been looking neighborhood by neighborhood to the type of housing, commercial use that we have, and it's about preserving the nature of the different areas that we have across the city, but at the same time, understanding that this notion of live, work, play, stay, this is an economic conversation. The closer you work to your home, the less you have in expenses, but a mix of housing in all areas across the city is critical. And you only need to look back to the housing recession to be able to see that high-end housing on its own will depress an entire area if banking were to turn, financing were to turn, housing were to have a downturn. We will be better served as a community when we have diversified housing in every single area of our community. And that's really what the zoning can do for us, so that we can have a down, but it's not going to affect every place and everywhere. So the question about affordable housing comes with having a proper mix between what's affordable, what's market rate, and what's upper market rate housing. That mix is really what is going to drive the socioeconomics of our community, and it's that live, work, play, stay. Buy local, because when you support local businesses, the money stays right here. All of that is a concept that is, it's not just here, it's everywhere. The development at, the potential development at Exit 13 will be a fine example of that live, work, stay, play, when you have retail as well as business and housing all in one location.
And medical.
Oh, yeah, medical.
Well, that's, I mean, right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean.
And if you look at the village of Pennacook, that's what's starting to build now, because we have housing, we have new housing that's coming in, that's market rate, but then we have businesses that are flourishing there as well. So having that type of mix is really, that prosper in Pennacook, that's our saying there. So we're a village on the verge for sure.
Well, we're going to go, we got some videos the staff put together about the election, so we thank you all, and you're welcome to stay on.
I think we've chatted all night now.
Well,
We
don't go
appreciate
anywhere.
your coming.
We're going to
We
go
love
to a
each
video
other,
right
but
now.
it's nice to have an.
We'll go to a video right now, and we'll see if we have any other guests.
So for all elections held in the city, which could be municipal, state, or federal, the city clerk is the chief election officer, if you will, for elections in the city of Concord. So our office, the city clerk's office team, which there's 4 of us, we're responsible for everything from assisting with ballot preparation, verifying ballots, getting out absentee ballots, ensuring that there's enough ballots on election day for all the polling locations, booths, setup, everything that happens in a given election starts here. So residents have the opportunity to register to vote here in the city clerk's office, prior to Election Day. Typically, there's a cutoff approximately 10 days before any given election. For the upcoming election on November 6th, the cutoff is this Thursday, October 25th. So residents come in, they have their photo ID. As long as their photo ID has their current address on it, that's all they need to register to vote. If they don't have their photo ID and/or proof of domicile or citizenship, we assist them in having them complete affidavits so that they can register to vote in any case. Other than that, they can register to vote on Election Day at the polls. So you want to bring your photo ID with you. Ideally, your photo ID has your current address on it. If it does not, residents bring proof of residency. It could be a utility bill, a lease, mortgage papers, a bank statement, a car registration. They register and they're on their way.
The elections. A lot of people don't realize the pressure that goes on with the elections, how much work goes into it behind the scenes. The fact that we're a capital city, it is not unusual for other governmental agencies at much higher levels than us to consult Janice in terms of how things are done, and I see that. And I see how she explains to people the way the election laws work, how we do things here. You know, as you know, we have 10 wards, and everything from the primary, national primary when it comes here, to even local school elections. And she handles it all flawlessly, and it isn't a story, but her response to me when we talk about elections is, you want to make sure we're not on the front page of the national paper if something goes wrong. And that's the great thing I have with Janice, is that I know she'll always do it right. She'll always, she's that conscientious. She won't let it, even a problem that comes up, spiral out of control. She will take it, she'll manage it, hands-on, she does it herself, and make sure it's done well.
Well, we have a great team of elected ward officials too. There's a moderator, supervisors of checklist, ward clerks in every one of our wards, ballot inspectors, great city team. Public properties guys help us get everything out. We are here to troubleshoot, hopefully minimal troubleshooting, just to assist, answer questions about where do I vote. People at the last minute still need information about that. We go out and do visits to polling locations to make sure everything runs smoothly, but honestly, we could not run elections without the amazing team that we have.
I've just always believed that it's a responsibility for citizens to take part in the government and come out and vote. I'm 75 and retired, but I've even started running for office because I think we need to have people running to give the choice to the public.
There's nothing more important than local elections. There's a ton that happens at the city level, but I would also just point to my children who are over there holding signs, and I think it's incredibly important for adults to involve children and show them that the democratic process is meaningful and involve them at an early age.
Well, it's important at a local level, especially because your decisions make a direct impact to the future of our city and the decisions that are made in it. I encourage everybody to come out and vote, no matter who you're voting for, to have an impact and, you know, get the people in there that can make a difference and really have a voice in our own city, which is awesome.
People have issues they want fixed, they have to come and vote so that it can be fixed by someone that wants to listen to their problems.
I'm here today at the polls at Bonnie Street, the Immaculate Conception Church. It's been a great turnout today, and I'm really heartened to see that because the local municipal elections, a lot of times we don't necessarily see a large turnout as we would like, but it's so important because it affects everything in the city. and it affects your taxes, it affects housing opportunities, job opportunities, economic development in the city. And all of that feeds back to being a part of the community and the importance of all the folks in the community being involved in some fashion or other. And this is everybody's opportunity on this one day to come out and express their opinions about, it's really your evaluation of me and how I've done, how the other folks on the City Council have done, and you get to cast your vote and make your decision based on that.
So we're back after watching another video of what's going on around the city on Election Day, and our councilors have moved on. We have some results we're going to put up here. Why don't we start with, I guess, the mayoral race, which wasn't very close, and not unexpectedly, the mayor was reelected for his 7th term. Here we go. And the result, 3901 to 994. So pretty much the same as his opposition the past few races. What else do we have up there? Council at large, I guess, was a little bit contested. Took us a while to call that one, with Champlin and Fennessy winning.
But the results were the same in every ward, 1, 2, and 3.
1, 2, and 3. So Champlin 3168, Fennessy 2721, and Chason a reasonably strong third for someone running citywide. I think the first time 1647, and we take a hat off to anybody that stood for the election and for running. It's not easy, and at this time we'll take a thank you to all the ward officials and the ballot counters and the people that sit there and count the 15% of the voters that care enough to show up and vote, maybe a little higher this year. And certainly we got a crew here as well. We'll do that. Joe Chardonneur is floor manager here. Thank you, Joe. And Connor Pavzek has done some of the graphics here, and our staff, Mike O'Mara, Josh Hardy, and we have some other people out there. What else do we have for, let's see, Board of Education? We got 3 wards there. A, B, and C, put one of them up if you have a chance. There we go. So Jim Richards by 598 to 387, an incumbent who I guess does a good job, and the voters thought that. Myers was close in wards 1 and 2, but 3 and 4 getting down. I think she lives up that way, getting downtown change. Ward.
Two good candidates in B district.
Yeah.
There was 100 votes, basically, difference.
Oh, a good campaign. A lot of signs out, and both of them were outspoken and pretty outspoken in standing up for what the school board was missing the boat on, if that's a polite way of saying it.
And they both brought a little bit something different to the race. You know, Schultz has a background in safety, and so children's safety was what he emphasized. David Parker has been in education for a long, long time. He's got Parker Academy. He's the head of. He's been active in the arts, and
he's on the planning board.
He's on the planning board as well, and so he's got some experience. He ran unsuccessful for council
last
spring, but now he'll be a new school board member, and he can bring his expertise to the board.
So positive change. And the third one, Virginia Ginny Cannon, 777, Pam Wicks, 643, up on the Heights.
Both have children in schools. Virginia Cannon has a daughter who's out of district placement, so she has dealt with the schools quite often in that regard. And Pam Wicks is a longtime volunteer, started out in then Dame School, and is president of the PTO. I think she's still president of the PTO in Broken Ground School, serves on the Concord Trust, and so has been very active, so her voice will be missed.
Yeah. Well, the other thing, I went to the candidates night that was a reasonably good turnout, but I'm in and out of this building, but not in the school portion at the high school. But I was in the auditorium. There was this laminated plastic, and it must have been 8.5 by 14 or even larger on the wall, and it talked about this is what happens for shelter in place. This is what you do. And I mean, you were talking about security and some of the threats that have occurred nationally and other places in schools, I guess as close as Connecticut. And I said, yeah. And then I live near Bishop Brady, and I'm walking around the building, and I know the number of, and I'm looking at how come they have, and they have each door has a letter or a number, and then in each room they have a room number. So if something's happening through door 24 into room 217, certainly. So I mean, and I guess there've been some grants and some federal money and maybe state money for doing some of those things. So.
Well, it certainly has changed. Safety is a big issue at schools. I've been retired now for 10 years, and it certainly has changed since then. I know the first bomb scare we had, the protocols really weren't in place, and so we worked really hard with the police department to identify who did what and when. And it was really the beginning of all those things that now are almost everyday practices.
You were principal at Beaver Meadow for, I don't know how many years?
The first 22 years.
Okay. And Glenn, you were going to make a comment?
Yeah, I was just curious on, do the new school board members have a detailed indoctrination program that they're provided with when they come on the board?
Each year the school board has a retreat, and so that's the equivalent of their orientation.
But I mean, do they get out to see all of the different schools and understand what the focuses are, and maybe
that's not a requirement.
would that be useful, you think, to understand the safety issues and some of these
board policy and all the kind of issues are addressed at that retreat, so that serves as their orientation. I think it's up to each board member the degree to which he or she is in the schools and wants to be in the schools.
Because it almost seems to me like that ought to be required, that new members visit all of the schools and maybe talk with the principals of the different schools, just to get a feel of what...
Meet the PTO.
Yeah.
Meet the PTO. I know, read the Globe now and again, the new superintendent in Boston, I don't know if there's 100 schools, and she says, I'm going to visit 100 schools in like 100 days or something like that. And certainly, I guess if you're the superintendent or CEO, it's something that you really need to know what you're overseeing.
Yeah, if you go on a board of a business, you go out and meet the people, and you go try, if they have big operations in different places, you try to make sure you're visiting those.
I know when I was principal, it was very welcomed, and the teachers and the students really appreciated when the board members came.
Did a lot of them do that, come by?
There were many. I don't have exact numbers. I don't think it was a majority, but many were very active in the schools.
There's no question that's incredibly important, but my observation of just what happened in the last few months, and I'm not there all the time, obviously, and everything else, but it was like maybe over the last few years there's more of a blending of what the administration does versus the board, and that the oversight of the board to the administration might have been a little weaker. It seems like it was weaker, that who's really running the place, and I certainly understand the responsibilities of a superintendent and principals and everything else, and it's there. But the board, in my view, and I certainly felt like this on the city council, we're not there to necessarily, I shouldn't say not support the administration, but we're there for an oversight also. And to make administrators and city manager or the superintendent of schools accountable for the actions. And if there's something amiss, then you, as a board member, you get right on top of it. Anyway, so that was the feeling I got, that there was a little, I don't want to say too much chumminess between the two groups, but it didn't sound like it was as defined as I certainly felt or feel like what we have on the municipal side with city council and the city manager.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Perhaps part of that comes from a history of thinking that the school district is doing a good job.
Yeah.
So you put your confidence in it.
Well, and this gets back to my thing about, for years and years and years, the low turnout at school board meetings and school elections compared to the municipal side. And I always scratch my head because financially, tax-wise, you know, it's double what the municipal side is for as far as taxes. And you know, so I've still been struggling with this over the years. And the only thing I can think of is the amount of different departments that the city does. I mean, everything, 10 departments, 12 departments. And I'm fortunate as a city council, I'll get phone calls from everything from a stop sign to why didn't they pick up my leaves to, you know, serious things like there's been homicides, what's going on and on and on from the public because it affects them all. But on the school side, it affects people that have children. I think that's the focus of the children. And so it's like a subset of a department of the city where I'm seeing it all. And with the schools, it's parents and educators that are focused on that. And so maybe it's, I don't even think about it is, so that's how it becomes more familiar for the board and the administration to work in tandem, not just work in tandem because we want to do that too, but that, again, there's not that kind of oversight that I get to hear every day.
What's how much money is the school board running basically versus the city?
Well, on the taxes, when you get to property tax, we got that laid out pretty easy now.
Yeah.
So it's like 1/3 or 38% goes to the municipal side.
And the other.
Then the county and the state take a little bit, and the rest is all the city, the
So,
schools.
I mean, right now, all of that money is, I'm kind of getting back to something I brought up earlier, but all of that funding is being administered by a temporary, I mean, we've lost so much depth right now on this, on the administration of those dollars at the school board, on the school committee or school board, that we got like, I don't know, $60 million that's being managed by a temporary manager, and we've lost depth underneath that too, right?
I think they still have, you're still there.
We lost the superintendent, we've lost the
Principal.
Principal at the high school.
That's it.
Didn't we lose one more too, that wasn't licensed or something?
No,
That was
I
a
understand he got his
temporary.
license.
He did get his license, okay, all right.
Well,
But it just,
well, what I was going to say,
The real issue will be, now they've hired a 3-day-a-week
Yeah,
superintendent. Temporary, that will take them through the year. For budget-wise and fiscal responsibility, once the budget is passed, and that's done in March, then the business administrator keeps tabs of all that. Now, the real challenge for the new superintendent will be to build that budget, to build it based upon what guidelines the board and he sets forth, and then build it and bring it to the public and bring it to the board. And those things will be starting pretty soon. So for me, the real issue is the ability to build the next budget. You know.
Well, I mean,
You're
you've got a
always
guy
dealing
that's there
with
3
the
days a
past
week
budget or
that's
the next one.
trying to figure out, you know, he's trying to get familiar with where the money's going and how it's being spent to put together the next budget. Because the next superintendent is not, they're talking about almost a year search or something. So who's going to?
Typically,
It's going to be the guy that's 3 days a week.
A June hiring, I would think would be what their time frame is.
So
The contract that they,
guy is going to really put the budget together then, right?
well, that's his job, yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I
at the
mean, it's
same
tough when
time.
you're coming in blind into a new situation, especially when it's got a lot of turmoil in it. And how much do you spend on safety next year?
At the same time, too, I think we don't lose sight of really the impact on students and teachers, because what happened to the students who spoke up, you know, I
Yes,
thought was
yeah.
terrible.
Yeah.
And making sure that the whole culture and atmosphere, I guess, around things changes, and that keeping that.
But there's nobody, I mean, is
well,
a
I don't know how
temporary
they-
person going to install that culture?
Well, I think they're working on it
They,
with some training.
they actually started work this past summer with training on, for staff. and all those protocols.
And I do find that, I mean, that's absolutely a must, but I hope through this process that the current school board members and the new school board members get a better understanding, because I thought this whole months was just mistake after mistake. I mean, sending a letter out to the school community, you know, kind of chastising the newspapers and reporters, and then I have to go back and apologize and that. And the other one is that it's happened many, many times on the council that we'll get a group of people to show up for a particular issue. And the city council and the mayor would change the rules for that evening and put that up front so that we answer, you know, we deal with it at that time. And to me, that's not only common sense, but a courtesy and understanding the people here. And why in the world would you want everybody that's a little angry to sit for an hour and a half?
Getting more angry.
and think that's a good idea? I mean, when I heard that, I said, I just don't understand that there wasn't anybody on that school board that would speak up to the president of the board and say, let's change the agenda. And so that's what I'm hoping, it will change. It's got to change. I think that was
Well, I think after building a budget being number one priority, another priority is the whole issue of communication. I think deciding who speaks for the board, how the communication goes between the board and the public, I think those are big issues that I think you're touching on.
Yeah.
You know, and I think the board had felt, to my mind, felt defensive in saying, no, we can't, instead of saying, here's what we're going to do. Right. There was a problem. We're going to fix it, and we're going to tell you how we're going to do that. We're going to set it out step by step, and there may be things that we can't say, but we're going to release everything that we can, instead of saying, you're not going to be happy with us not being able to tell you things.
And so my biggest disappointment is they didn't call you and say, what do you think? And you would have saved a lot of grief and angst and everything for the community if they listened to you, what you just said.
I think it's important to have your communications, you know, all of us were trained in crisis management, and this was a crisis, you know. A crisis can come for student safety, in a bomb threat, or an animal in the playground, or any time. But you've got to get your communications down and decide who's going to do what. And you need to remind yourself and everybody why you're there. You're there for the kids. You're there for education. And that has to be the first thing that you say.
Well, one of the things in your past that I saw that was fantastic communications when you were a principal is that how you handled Arnold Schwarzenegger when he visited your school many years ago. You did a fabulous job.
We'll save that story for another day. I was going to mention, I had done quite a bit of thought on the issue of why people show up at the council versus the school board, and I've appeared and spoken at both. 4,500 students, if they're all only children with two parents, you really only have 9,000 people out of the 43,000, and the other remaining ones, unless the budget is going through the roof, are not really going to be showing up at the school board to scream. It's become such a specialized society. You really need some citizen committees for some oversight as well, saying, you know, well, here's what's going on. You know, one issue that came up, and I actually used it in another context, was the school didn't fund, the budget this year didn't fund a resource office of Arundel, and it would seem to me it would be a no-brainer to find the money with the type of controversy that was ongoing, and to fund that, and whether that's going to be done or not, I don't know, and whether in fact there's a school resource officer, also known as a police officer, going around to the elementary schools as well, at least.
So I can do this because I've only got 2 months left. I was thinking about that, and also another one is Memorial Field, and you know, should the school board take over Memorial Field because they use it most of the time, and it's $1 million cost, and the resource officers. But well, I sat back and said, wait a minute, the money's coming from our pockets. It doesn't, to me, it doesn't matter who.
Pays for it.
Is it the school board or is it the city council? My thing is, who can do it in a more efficient and better way? I mean,
Correct.
can the school board or the school's organization take care of Memorial Field better than the Concord Parks and Rec? And can they do it at a cheaper price and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
And if they can't, that's
Okay.
good. We should sponsor that. And the resource officers, the same thing. It's if we need a resource officer, we shouldn't debate who's going to pay for it. Who's going to pay for it is us.
Yeah.
It's just,
Well,
All comes out of the same check.
Yeah, it does.
I'll take you back many years, showing my thinning gray hair is earned, and the crossing guards. At some point, the police department ran them, and when we had a former city manager, at some point, we're not funding that. That's a school function. It's not on our budget. We're going to cut our police budget by moving that out. But we got 10 minutes to go. Perhaps we can run some graphics on Keno and sports betting, if that's not too difficult, and then maybe we'll do a rundown. But I want to thank you all for being here and offering some insight. Quite surprisingly, I think all the results were in by kudos to the city clerk's office. Keno, 2291, 2545. Last time it was yes, 1723, and no, 2249. So we've got a smaller margin. What do we got? 254 there, and last time it was looks more like about 523. So we got halfway to Keno, folks. Wait till 2021.
We had 5 of the 10 wards actually voted in favor of it.
And I think last time it was only 1, 2, and 8. So anyway, I mean, I've never played Keno. Have no horse in the race. The same with sports betting. I haven't bet, but to the extent that at some point, we want to be a 21st century city. People are downtown on Sundays. Stores are open. I'm not sure having Keno or sports betting makes us any more of a 21st century city than not having it.
Well, somebody mentioned that they'll be back in 2 years and ask again, but with the bill that passed the legislature and was signed into law, doesn't it limit the amount of places that can have it?
I believe there's only going to be 10.
So it would seem that within the next 2 years, that decision would be made where the 10 are, and they
may not be here in Concord. And then, of course, the lobbyists could come in and make it go to 12 and 14 and 16.
That's right, but I think it would take another law being passed for that to be done.
And I'd be willing to bet that, the reason Rockingham Park was on the Massachusetts border, and that we'll see quite a few sports betting parlors. I guess Massachusetts hasn't passed that. Somebody said, I read the Globe was saying New Hampshire has jumped the gun on Massachusetts on sports betting. Rhode Island, I think, has it as well. So,
Sports betting, just one Ward 2, I think, was the only ward that really.
What was it, 19? Could you put that back up? 1914, I babbled through it. 1914 to, what is it, 2877. So that was about 963, I guess.
It was voted down in every ward except 2.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so I guess we'll go down the ballot here. We got less than 10 minutes. We'll basically, Mayor Boulay won quite handily. Champlin and Fennessy are the new at-large councilors, 4-year terms.
One thing we didn't mention is that Fennessy was on the school board.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
Yes,
served on the school
yeah.
board, so this may help
was the first.
that cross-pollination, having the expertise in the school board. I think it's always good when somebody has served in one capacity, it goes to another part of the city.
And just quickly, of the 3 candidates at large, because there's 2 that was going to get elected, and I really felt all 3 candidates were really prime candidates, and it also made me feel a lot better of not serving on, but have those 3 quality people look for my seat. And So the city certainly won on that.
Worthy successes. Ward 1, Brent Todd, 246, beats back opposition of Kevin Miller by 21 votes with 1 write-in. Board of Education, Jim Richards in 1, 2, District A, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Wins by, there's the numbers there, 598 to 387. Ward, let's see, what else do we have? And then I guess we go to Ward 8. We had Gail Mattson, who won in the other contested ward seat. And let's see, the mayor. And then Ward 5, 6, and 7, School Board, Dave Parker, 388 to 358. Thank you for my graphics person. That was just one ward, 947. So winning by 103 in a fairly contested race. A lot of signs out, and it's nice to see that good qualified people are stepping up and throwing their hats in the ring. Dave Parker.
I think Byron won the sign contest.
Oh, I don't think there's much doubt about that. And then up on the Heights, Gina Cannon, an attorney, a public guardian, a parent, beats Pam Wicks, an incumbent. Still a fairly close race. What do we got? 134 different there. But so I guess and then both Keno goes down and sports betting goes down. We got less than 5 minutes. Last few comments here. Any surprises?
Well, I think the school board probably did elevate the number of voters that turned out. We had 1 incumbent defeated and 1 reelected, so I don't know that it's definitive one way or the other, but I think that issue became one that I think brought more people to the polls. And so I think often Concord is a town that elects individuals, where it's a nonpartisan election, and you look at the individual and how well they're doing. This year, I think there were issues that brought people to the polls over and above just the people that they support.
Yeah, well, turnout was up 9%. Glenn Curry, our resident philosopher, writer, I don't know what else.
Rock on tour.
Has a new book out, Ball of String. It'll be down at...
Wonderful book, I might add.
November, we're down to 2 minutes. November 25th, he'll be at Gibson's. Go on down, and if you're looking for a good Christmas.
Do a reading. I'm doing a reading. I'd love to have everybody come down here.
And Rosemary Lanier does the Wrapping with Rosemary. Some final comments. We're down to probably a minute's worth of comments.
I think it's always good when people do decide to run for something, and I think in most or maybe even all of the contested races, there was no extreme difference, So it seems to indicate that the people that went out and ran in general are good people, have a lot of backing, and that's good for a resident of Concord to know. I'll put it that way.
I thought it was interesting too that Pennacook is suddenly kind of becoming alive up there, and I think the turnout, voting up there kind of showed that, but there's a lot of stuff going on up there that's pretty good or pretty productive for that area.
So it's overdue, and we got a minute left. Mark Cohen, the last 13 years on Monday nights, you've been pretty busy. What are you going to do with your spare time?
I'm just going to watch the reruns on Concord TV in my 13 years. But, tonight's another example. I've lived in Concord since 1971. And this is what, to me, makes Concord so great, because this is a community, and the people that come out, like you were saying, that it's nonpartisan, it's civic, they're doing this, it's not a political party or anything else going on, and so that's one of the things that makes it great.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah.
We're going to miss Mark on the city council.
Well, maybe we'll get him in here a little more often.
Watch me on reruns.
So, get me on camera here, Charlie Russell for Concord TV.